Now, I also seen it where the dangerous precedent that they set in the public is saying that, in cases of rape and incest, the abortions may still be allowed. Now, the dangerous part about that is if we go back to the original case of Wade versus Roe, and we see that in the original case, there was a white woman literally accusing black men of rape. That was a false accusation where there was a lack of any substantial evidence that point to this being true, and she ended up losing the case. Then that, to me, is going to what? Propagate more of the situations to where women may falsely accuse men of rape in order to get them to have an abortion. That, to me, sounds like a dangerous precedence within itself. Right? So that's why I had commented like, this is dangerous. You understand me? And then just the mindset that in our communities, the passion that we have for our rights is not that you shouldn't have those rights, because there's a multitude of circumstances that I feel like, emergency situations should be available, but it should not be a part of the culture. It should not be a part of the culture. I just want us to think about that. Like, that should always, we should have a society where we have much higher standards for ourselves.
How do you feel like that?
I just talked about that one. That was the false allegation. But I'm gonna get into that one in a second. But the culture should be, and when I say the culture should be pro-life, right? I think everybody agrees to that because everybody is here, right? Like, I would have hate to have my mother utilize an option to not allow me to have life and impact in the world. That's just, it is what it is. So some people do treat abortion as birth control instead of the last ditch emergency effort, right? Because even when a woman goes through that, she goes through different changes within her body. Like, it changes you. You understand me? So I would imagine like that should just be the logic of it. Like, of course, we are alive. Our parents went through term with us. You are pro-life just by the fact that you are alive and that you are alive. So I think that when we talk about it, it should not just be a mainstay in our culture to where we say that, everybody, like part of the culture is women having 2-3 abortions sometimes. Like, that shouldn't be a part of it. It should be like a last-ditch effort, not a celebrated one. And definitely not a savior tool. Like, this is a part of a solution, because it's not a part of a solution. The solution is higher standards, morals, values, principles. You understand me? Because at the end of the day, we are grown adults in our actions. And everybody here knows that when you lay down with another person, the possibility is that after the enjoyment of the pleasure of sex, pregnancy, right? I would imagine condom sales will go up. I would imagine that, and I didn't grow up in some celibate household. You understand me? I grew up on player terms as well. So I'm not speaking from a place of holy endearment. You understand me? I'm just speaking from a realistic point where what happened to us having standards. Just saying, birth control is dangerous because, yes, it's bad for you as well. Absolutely. Now men go get the vasectomies. One thing that people didn't understand is the birth rates are already low. And that's even in the black community and in the whites, what people don't realize. The abortion rates were going down already year per year when you do the studies. And I've done the studies before this situation because I just wanted to understand and unpack the relevancy of depopulation and decrease of birth rates and how that has an impact on growing empires and a falling of empires, because there's a correlation, right? But from a moral standpoint, I think that we become more passionate about aborting life more than we are supporting life. I just want us to, like, when I see us rally and support, when I see crowds of people come together, that same energy does not exist. We haven't had a black family march in a very long time. We haven't had a black family march in a long time, right? And so for me, I look at it as going backwards rather than forward in this conversation. And we can't, and a lot of times we're not allowed to have these conversations outwardly where we can speak and we can say, okay, this is my perspective on it. This is yours. Where do we meet in the middle to make sense? How would our ancestors look at our behavior? Because everybody talk about pulling from the ancestors. You can't goddamn tell me that your ancestors would agree with the behavior of the things that we fight for today. You can't tell me, because I know that they believed in the opposite. They believed in having babies. They believed in creating families. They believed in pro-family. So I think the most dangerous thing, of course, is men not taking responsibility for their seeds. Because when you look at the issue, this is where men are responsible in this situation. Because if men are not taking responsibility for their seeds to take care of their children, then of course you're going to automatically find an increased rate, because we have broken homes. And what we look at and what we see in our own household, we then project on what's going to happen to us later. Oh, well, young women don't want to have children. How do we get to that point where we have now reverse engineered young black women don't want to have, especially not no 4, 5, 6, 7 children. My mom had 10 of them. Thank her soul. You know, like that's no longer the thing. The thing is, no, be of the world, build in this world. And then towards the end of the cycle of a lot of women's careers, when they start thinking about being happy. And then with men being loose in their responsibility and having a lack of character and becoming more effeminate, that's not the better methodology for creating better fathers. You dig? So with men becoming more effeminate, you know, now you're going to see them without the even testicular fortitude to stand up and be responsible and to take care of a woman. And your child, your responsibility, your legacy, that what you put out there. That's a dangerous precedent. So it's not one. It's you start looking at these things, and you, Honorable Muhammad say, where there is no good woman, she was made that way by no good man. So I don't put that responsibility to be like, oh, women are tripping. No, it was the men that tripped. We got pimping culture, hoe culture, bitch culture, all of that. And then it created the reality that we're living right now. So this reality we're living right now is a side effect of our history. It didn't have to be, but it's a side effect. Right? And so here we are at a dangerous inflection point where these things can just really go bad, especially for our community, because we are already a lack of family, and families rule the world. I just want to let y'all understand that. Without getting back to a structure where we ritualize the family, where we honor the family, where it becomes the highest of the hierarchy in our culture, there is no way where we catch up with any other race. We always in last place. There is none. There's no scenario from an individual standpoint where we catch up. You have to think about that. Our women would rather fight for not having your child rather than to have yours. That's a very reverse process. That's something that we as men have to change by us standing on our square, by us representing at a higher level. You feel me? And of course, there's a lot of side effects that's just not talked about at all on how this affects men and how this affects women. So it's a dangerous precedent, because what destroyed the family was the welfare system, the breaking of the family. We went all the way through 400 years of slavery without the family being destroyed. We went through Black Wall Street, redlining. We went through segregation, Jim Crow, sharecropping. We went through all the worst of the worst. And it was the welfare state that destroyed the family. Because if you have the man in the household, then they're not going to give you no money. Now here becomes the baby daddy, baby mama situation. That we went through everything, and they destroyed us with money and welfare. Because if the man was in the household, then she could no longer get that same support. You dig? So what do you think this is causing? What do you think this is causing? What does it mean mentally when you go see a rally of women that is fighting furiously and passionately for the ability from what they call to abort life. I just want you guys to understand the psychology of what's this happening. The psychology of what's this happening on the larger society and the larger culture, but we don't think about the effects that it may have, because no other time in history have we seen this besides, the original time that it came into fruition. All right. So I think that we have to, first of all, like I said, we got to get back to standards. I think if we don't have standards, because everything is preventable and avoidable. You understand me? And like I said, I do, and this is my more mature thinking, I do support women having the ability, and rights over their own body. And at the same time, that ability and rights has to go towards all human bodies. So when we talk about mandatory V's that everybody had to inject themselves with, I'm trying to understand, like, you set a dangerous precedent when you start allowing government bodies to say what you can and cannot do. So when they are allowed to say, well, you can't enter this place unless you have this injected in your body, that goes into being able to control a person, you understand me, with certain rights. I just want us to understand where we headed to. We're living in a time where you're getting less and less and less rights over your own body. And how can a person give you rights over your body unless you don't have the initial ownership of your own body in the first place? That's the only way. That's like somebody saying, I'll give you the right to drive your car only at night. Well, you can only do that if you own the car. So because Americans are property of the United States of America as a corporation under being citizens, then they give us rights to our own body. And this is the most dangerous thing. See, you got to understand the law, the way the world works, for you to be able to understand precedents and the way these things happen in the first place. Now, go look at the Native American tribes and go see if they had the same issue on their reservations. They can do whatever they want to on their reservations because America doesn't control their body. It's a sovereign land. So we have to get to a higher perspective and a point where I know the more dangerous thing is the fact that, yes, abortions have the highest rate of killing black babies in the world, more than anything else that we die from, which means less families, less men and women are created, which means our population size becomes lower. So from a population standpoint, the Hispanic community is rising, and they're going to be the majority in the world because we are of a higher proportionate utilizing these resources. But if I'm going to see Oprah and I'm going to see all the women's movement push out for abortion rights, then you should have the same energy for women who decide to have the babies as well. I'm just saying. You should also be pro-family if that's the case. Because the families is actually how we get to a better position of wealth and power. A woman singular doesn't contribute to add to generational wealth. A man singular doesn't contribute to add to generational wealth. It's those who have the children that procreate, that produce the future generations. So the greatness of your individual reality does not sustain us for the future unless you contribute something of magnitude that pushes human progress towards the next frontier. You feel me? So we don't think about what's our method of us getting the majority rule and control. But every other group has a group tank. They have a brain, a trust that's thinking about how do we maintain power and majority rule and control. But we just follow along with everybody else's flow. We never stop because it becomes the crowded, the popular thing to do. And then it becomes dangerous if you ever speak your mind, because then you lose your platform. And it's not that the people around you don't agree with it. It's the one in power that controls and says that You only have the right to say this or that. Otherwise, you lose your privilege. So I do want to employ everybody here, man. Be responsible with who you decide to have sex with. Who you decide to not pull out on. You dig? Because it's your responsibility. That's how it was back in the day. It's your responsibility. There was always plan B. Every time a person had sex, they could have always got plan B. And that could have stopped any pregnancies from coming to any type of term. And that would have satisfied the people that are pro-life. People chose to have sex raw. You understand me? Not pull out. You feel me? And roll the dice multiple times until you consistently give birth where you can't handle the responsibility and you can't afford it. So fellas, women and men have power in this situation, because women, you can decide to not have sex with men that you don't believe will be good fathers. Men, you can make sure that you don't have sex with women that you don't want to mother your child. I know it feels good, but it won't feel good when the responsibility comes and you can't take care of it. So I feel like the best plan B is plan A. You know? I'm just saying. Like, if it makes you more responsible to say that, damn, I got to sacrifice the pleasure for responsibility, then that's on you. But we don't want to take that, so we want all of these other resources because we want to be able to be irresponsible and then have a backup plan. And so I'm not talking about in situations where there's this vast amount of things that people need these surgeries for, or they need these. I'm talking about only in cases where the only reason that you may need that situation is because we just want to be wild, free, and out of control. If that's the time that we're living in right now, and it's actually going to give you more power, then it is what it is. Otherwise, live your reality. I mean, they do have condoms. Condoms may not work 100% of the time, but it's going to work 99% better than going in raw, dropping your semen in somebody, and then rolling the dice and hoping that she don't get pregnant. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm just going to speak to us real, raw, and plain. You feel me? This is why, drinking adds to this behavior, right? You go to the club, you get drunk, the lust take over, you have sex, boom. Next thing you know, you got a child. Smoking, you get high, ambition lowered, you just on some chill, want to catch a vibe, boom. Get naked, bust down, have some sex. You hit some pills, you hit some lean, whatever it is. It just seems that now it's saying that, yo, you got to be more responsible for your decisions and your choices. It is what it is. And, it's not going to always be that way because we live in a society that carries the opposite. So I understand how uneasy it is. I'm not saying this shit easy. I'm just saying that this is the new reality. If that's your new reality, how are you going to change in this new reality? I'm just saying. So for me, whether they say, look, you can have an abortion all the way up to 6 months, or whether they say you can have one at all, it's going to have an effect on the human mind, emotions, the psyche. I think our levels of empathy have changed. I think what we consider to be, right and wrong have changed. Our moral capacity to appreciate things have changed. We claim to be spiritual, but we have to be so spiritually disconnected in order for you not to give reverence to the idea that life starts at the moment of conception. Because it's a spiritual thing. We don't argue with science, we argue with spiritual. You understand me? It's a spiritual thing. Like, We come from a being a very spiritual people. Our people have never went to science and started to create arguments. We would go based on what the spirit was, the connection that we have with things. And the moment that we have a connection with things, then that's when it gives spiritual validation to this being real. And so because we are a spiritually disconnected people and we're moving in a more psychopathic manner to where we only want to think from a logical standpoint, you understand me, void of emotion, then that's when we start operating like them. No. Nah, we start operating like them, and that's dangerous. So you can't take the spiritual argument out of it because we always been a spiritual people. But they trying to get us to be like them. Well, we going off science. Well, when did you just go off science? Only in this place? Everything else, law of attraction. Everything else is astrology. Everything else is chakras. Everything else is sage. But in this situation, let's just go off the science. Everything else is ancestor energy. But in this situation, let's go off the science. Come on, man. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. That's a contradiction. I know everybody gonna talk to you like this, but I'm gonna tell you like it is. That's a contradiction. You can't be crystals in one area, but just science in other. So you have to live a holistic lifestyle, and it has to be holistic in this mindset that we have. Because most of the thought leaders and the people that run the movements, they don't look like us. You're not going to get to the top of these movements and find somebody that look like us. There's going to be somebody spiritually devoid, most likely emotionally devoid. There's going to be some capitalists in there. There's going to be some politics in there. And then this the trickle down politics. By the time it's handed to you, here's your program. This is what you say. These are the quotes that you utilize. This is the argument that you utilize. This is the science that you utilize. This is your box to think from. So I think that that's dangerous for me. I don't know about y'all, but that's dangerous for me. So I just wanted to have that conversation with y'all because, I had to put my 19 cents on it. And this will be saved on my YouTube channel. But those are my thoughts. I just think that we have to get to a very spiritual, we have to have more higher spiritual standards for ourselves. I think, even practicing celibacy is a great thing, because I would rather people have families when they actually want to, rather than accidental families is the most dangerous thing in our society. Because families used to have so much meaning. I mean, the most meaning in the world. Everything was about that family. Everything was about that tribe you was creating. Every single thing. Our whole existence was about it. That's why we do everything around family. Our gangs are around family. Sports are around a team, right? It's about, like Kyrie Irving say, finding your tribe season. Everything was about family and teams and tribes. That's why we got to have us some friends. But we don't know how to pick them anymore because we lost the family rituals. So when we go find friends, we don't even know how to find the right ones. And they be the ones that stab you in the back and treat you and do you wrong. So we lost without the proper ability of real intelligence. And real intelligence, and let me give y'all this nugget. Intelligence used to be defined based on the spirit. That's what it was defined, that each person has an intelligence in their spirit, something that's genuine about them that they can tap into. It's your connection to source, the creator, God. That's what intelligence was defined by. Your perspective was your intelligence, right? Something that you can bring out. It shifted and it changed to computational data. Let me tell you why. First of all, black women, y'all have always been the most mathematical. See, we always look for men in history to find mathematical, right, theorists and teachers, but it was the women that was always behind the movements. That's why NASA and Hidden Figures had black women in the basement, because y'all were the first. They called them computers, right? Before there was these big hardwares where they can create 1 gigabyte to computate data, there was black women as computers. And then it switched over to your meaning of intelligence being based upon your ability to compute information like a computer. That's the way it worked. You understand me? Your ability to be able to process information, right? Your processing speed, your ability to quantify data, and people be like, yo, you got your wires crossed. Like, we start giving all references to how human beings could think like machines, and the more you think machine-like, the more intelligent you become praised. So we started to lose the ability to see a person's creative agency as intelligence. And this is why black people have an unfair measurement of us seeing our own genius and our own intelligence, is because they created these systems that weren't based on our strengths. So they start giving us aptitude tests that have nothing to do with our intelligence, that have nothing to do with our actual genius. So you start thinking you stupid in school because you getting D's. You're getting C's and F's on things that have nothing to do with your actual intelligence. Think about that for a second. It ain't never just been men rule the world. It's always been men and women rule the world. It's just we are more preoccupied with the idea of legacy, so we wanted things to be written down. Women were never occupied with those things. Women that didn't have to write things down in history to be remembered. That's a masculine thing. We want to be carried on into the future. We'll care less about how you feel about me now rather than how I'm felt about when I die. That's a logical thought for the most part. So we start writing history down. Women weren't writing it. If women were the writers of history, it would have been written in a different manner, different perspective, different feeling, different energy. I'm just saying. So we have to be able to take a look at these things, because a lot of you all don't know your real intelligence. You don't know your true value. You don't know your true genius, because school fucked you up into thinking that, these IQ tests, these goddamn SATs, all of these things make me smart. If I can increase my ability to do what? To memorize. Because that's what the computers do. The more storage of a computer, the greater the computer is. So it went from 1 gigabyte to having terabytes. And 1 gigabyte used to be goddamn 30 machines. Then it became smaller. Moore's law is based on transistors becoming smaller and smaller, which basically shows that the increase in technology grows over time. So we believe that the more we can memorize, right? Because that's how the computer was, based on memory. But it ain't got shit to do with intelligence. So you look at somebody like Kanye West. We call Kanye West a genius because you can see his intelligence, his genius on display. Not from his ability to solve a math problem. That's different. Right? My intelligence is completely different. I design new worlds for people to be able to take that program. I give conceptualized information and data. So we lost without that understanding, and we don't know our value. And if you do, this is part of the route to knowledge itself. This is optimization. This is why one of the chief things I'm working on right now is creating a program where people can go through these steps of self-optimization and to be able to realize their true self, to be able to get to that power. And by the time you get to it and you done through it, now you got gifts you can use for your purpose. You understand me? Because people have been asking me, do a mentorship, do something like this. So putting it together, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be love. Peace, love. So, it's a lot going on in this world, and unfortunately, man, we stuck, and we don't know the truth about the things that happen in our reality, and we don't get a real education. There's people that be mad at me because I jump into so many subjects. I seen a video on YouTube. Why 19 Keys got so many subjects? It was some suckers on there having a discussion about me because they life suck. They wife suck, they kids suck. So they want to have a conversation about Keys. And I understand because, I may have a much more interesting life. Bro, Chicago, I had to slide to D.C., but Chicago Crypto Bully is my guy. Make sure y'all follow him, bro. I wanted to get up with you so bad, but time. But I definitely got to lock in with you because I love what you're doing over there. We're going to lock in. But anyway, man, I understand that. When you got a life that sucks like that, you got to try to figure out how do you integrate and get attention from somebody else and try to connect your life to somebody else to make yours more important. But anyway, the whole thing is I'm polymathic. I'm God body. You can't tell me I need to stick to one subject or this subject or none of that. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, nobody gets the ability to tell me how I get to live. You don't have that kind of power. You can't say, I want to see Keys do this. I want to see Keys do this. I want him you don't have that kind of power. Human beings were never just meant to stick to one thing. We were programmed to stick to one thing. But even in school, when you went to school, what was it? Huh? When you went to school, they give you a myriad of subjects to study. They didn't give you one. That was so that because it originally was brought off based on being a universal thinker. So they give you a myriad of subjects so you can become a universal thinker. And you pick the ones that you have the greatest strength in, and then you double down on that. And that's where you start to find your gifts and your talents, and you develop those skills and those strengths, and you can become a genius in that area, and then that's what you give to the world. It was a very simple system. If a person happens to be a mathematical genius, then we're going to send him over there for mathematics, engineering, and stuff like that. This person is creative. They are artistic. They going to handle the design of the world. Right? It was different fields. But we were never given a route because it was starting to become based on money so that they can create a workforce. So it wasn't about you developing your strengths. It was about you being good enough to work for somebody else. That's it. So our parents never got to develop their strengths and their talents. So with this generation, some people may just be funny. Some people are super creative, and social media allowed you to have a different opportunity than what was normally given to you. Because your parents never had a platform to see what their real strengths and their real purpose was. Because go to school, go to college, work for somebody. They were just given those things, and they was miserable.